Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're opening up a text written almost 2,000 years ago, yet it feels weirdly relevant, almost like a manual for getting through today. It's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor.
It really is fascinating. And the key thing, is that this wasn't written for an audience, not for us. These were his private notes, like a diary. Imagine the most powerful man in the world basically giving himself these daily mental workouts on paper.
Wow, so it's this raw, unfiltered look inside his head.
Exactly. He's wrestling with these huge questions,
Mm.
right? Meaning resilience, how to keep it together when everything seems to be falling apart. Very human stuff.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We want to dig into this ancient source, pull out the core ideas, the actual
Mhm.
techniques maybe, and figure out why this philosophy, Stoicism, feels less like dusty history and more like, I don't know, an operating system upgrade for dealing with all the noise and pressure today.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Maybe start with the context. Who was this guy? Right, Marcus Aurelius. You have to picture his position. He wasn't just a powerful person. He was arguably the most powerful man on earth at that time. The Emperor of Rome. Absolute authority, incredible wealth, millions of lives under his command.
Okay, so top of the world.
Pretty much. And that's what makes his private writing so, well, unexpected. You'd think it'd be all about power, politics, military strategy.
Grand plans, yeah.
But no, the pages are full of these really humble reminders to himself, like don't lose your temper, don't get arrogant, don't chase fame.
He's even telling himself not to sleep in too late.
Seriously, the emperor is worried about hitting snooze.
Basically, yeah, he's coaching himself on, like, fundamental character. It's quite something.
That does make him seem incredibly human, not some distant historical figure.
It really does. And that's why the book still hits home, I think. He wasn't writing this stuff during some peaceful golden age either. His reign was chaos.
What's going on then? Well, you had the Antonine Plague, this devastating pandemic that killed millions. He spent years on the front lines fighting these brutal wars against Germanic tribes. Oh, and then there was a major betrayal from one of his top generals, Avidius Cassius. So constant crisis.
So he's not philosophizing in some ivory tower. He's literally writing this stuff in a tent, on campaign, trying to stay sane.
Exactly. He wasn't aiming to be some perfect philosopher king in the abstract. He was just trying day by day to live with integrity under immense pressure. And that struggle, the effort to actually live his principles, that's what makes meditations feel so authentic and relevant.
Okay, so that brings us to the philosophy itself. Stoicism.
Mm.
What were the core principles he kept coming back to in these notes?
Well, Stoicism, at its heart, is really practical. It's like an operating system for life. The main idea is, look, you can't control external events, the world out there, but you can control your mind, your judgments about those events. And it all circles back to these four cardinal virtues: justice, temperance, courage, and wisdom. For the Stoics, these weren't just nice ideas. They were the only things that are truly good. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, it's secondary. Indifferent, they called it.
Okay, so virtues are the goal. And the main tool to get there is this focus on control you mentioned. The sources really hammer this point.
Control is fundamental. He grills this into himself constantly. The core maxim is basically, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Stoics had a specific way of thinking about this, often called the dichotomy of control, though it's maybe more like a trichotomy.
Oh, how does that work? A three-way split.
Yeah, sort of. You divide everything you encounter into three buckets. 1, things you have complete control over. What are those? Your thoughts, your judgments, your intentions, your own actions. 2, things you have absolutely zero control over, like the weather, past events, what other people ultimately think or do. And 3, things you have partial control or influence over. This is the tricky one.
Okay, like trying to get a promotion. You control your work, your effort, but not the final decision.
Exactly that. Or, say, planning an outdoor event.
Huh.
You control the planning, the setup, but you don't control the rain. Marcus constantly reminds himself, focus your energy only on bucket 1, your own mind, your own character, your effort. Accept the outcomes from bucket 2 and 3, because they're ultimately not up to you. That's the discipline.
Okay. But playing devil's advocate for a second, does that intense focus on internal control risk sounding a bit like bottling things up, like suppressing natural emotions about bad stuff that happens?
That's a really important question, and it's a common misunderstanding of Stoicism. Marcus isn't saying don't feel sad or don't feel angry. He acknowledges those initial feelings, those impressions are natural. What he is saying is Don't let your judgment about the event add fuel to the fire. Don't agree with the initial impression that something is terrible or unfair in a way that paralyzes you or makes you act badly. The initial pang of pain is natural. Deciding to wallow in it, to catastrophize, to lash out, that's the part you have control over. It's not repression, it's more like emotional triage. Don't let external chaos dictate your inner state.
Okay, that clarifies it.
Yeah.
It's about managing the reaction to the feeling, not denying the feeling itself.
Precisely. And tied right into this idea of control is the second huge theme, impermanence. The whole memento mori thing, remember you will die. And not just you, but everything.
Right, he seemed very aware of history.
Hugely aware. As emperor, he knew the names, the stories of all the emperors who came before him. But he also knew that most people, even the really powerful ones, were forgotten pretty quickly after they died.
That must have been sobering. A good check on the ego, I imagine.
Definitely. He used it strategically against ego, against fear, against attachment. He practiced something called premeditatio malorum, basically, thinking ahead about things going wrong.
Premeditating evils sounds grim.
It sounds grim, but it's actually incredibly practical. Instead of just hoping for the best, you actively consider potential setbacks. You know, today I will meet interfering, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial people. By mentally rehearsing adversity, illness, loss, betrayal, failure, you kind of strip it of its shock value if or when it happens. You're training yourself not to be blindsided by reality.
So preparing for the worst actually makes you stronger when it happens. Counterintuitive, but it makes sense.
And he combined that with another technique, sometimes called the view from above. He'd mentally zoom out from himself in his tent to the army camp to Rome to the whole empire, then the earth, then the entire cosmos across vast time.
Putting things in perspective.
Exactly. When you look at your immediate problem, that annoying colleague, that missed deadline from the scale of the universe, it tends to shrink quite a bit. It helps detach from the urgency and emotion of the moment.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. We have these powerful ancient ideas. Control your mind, accept impermanence, zoom out. Why does this stuff, written by a Roman emperor 2 millennia ago, still hit so hard today?
I think it's because it's so brutally honest. Meditations isn't selling you anything. There are no life hacks, no shortcuts to happiness. Instead, it demands this daily, ongoing discipline, a mindset shift. And that feels like an antidote to a lot of the modern noise and pressure.
Yeah, so, like, specifically for modern life, the constant online stuff, the pressure to always be on.
Well, think about Marcus warning against chasing external validation, fame, other people's opinions. Translate that to today. Are you posting things online to cultivate your actual character or just to get likes? Are you making career choices based on your internal values or based on what looks good to others? Stoicism gives you a framework to check your motivations. Are they internal, within your control, or external, outside your control? It's kind of the ultimate defense against, performative living.
That's a powerful lens. So when we feel overwhelmed, stressed at work, maybe let down in a relationship, just facing chaos, what's the practical Stoic tool?
The framework is always pause, breathe, identify what is actually in your control right now. Usually that's just your next thought, your next action, your attitude. Then, crucially, accept what is not in your control, the past, other people's choices, the outcome itself. And then you bring in what might be his most potent insight for dealing with roadblocks.
No, I think I know the one you mean. That quote about obstacles.
That's the one. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
Say more about that. How does that work?
It's a total reframing of difficulty. It means that the problem you're facing, the tough project, the difficult conversation, the unexpected crisis, isn't just blocking your path. It is thy path. The obstacle itself is the raw material you now have to work with. It forces you to be creative, to adapt, to practice those virtues: courage, wisdom, justice, temperance.
So you stop seeing setbacks as, like, unfair roadblocks and start seeing them as training opportunities.
Exactly. Necessary training grounds. The obstacle becomes the way forward by forcing you to find a new way or strengthen your resolve. It transforms frustration into fuel.
That really changes everything about how you'd approach challenges.
Absolutely. And that's why reading Meditations today doesn't feel like reading ancient history. It feels more like sitting down with a mentor, someone who really gets how hard it is just to be a decent, resilient human being, especially when things are tough. He lived it, and he shares that struggle.
So if we boil it all down for you, the listener, what's the final takeaway from these sources? It seems like this dual message.
I think so. First, you can't control what happens out there in the world. It's chaotic, unpredictable. Accept that. But second, You always control how you respond, how you show up, with calm, with clarity, with courage, anchored in your own values. That's your power.
Right. Live with virtue, focus on what's yours to control, and try not to waste your energy chasing things that, as Marcus knew, inevitably fade away, like fame or wealth or constant approval.
That core message feels timeless. It's maybe the best shield we have against a lot of modern anxiety.
So as you think about how this ancient emperor's private thoughts might apply to your own life, your own daily challenges, here's something to maybe mull over. Given that Marcus wrote all this purely for himself, to find his own inner peace and strength, what single piece of his wisdom do you think is the most vital, the most essential to maybe share with someone else today to help them navigate their own struggles?